Okay, so we talked about what you like about the Nexus 4.
Yeah.
Let's go in depth and see,
Yes.
talk about the nitty gritty. I'm really curious about the new version of the OS.
Yeah. So Nexus 4, again, I've been using it for over a month now.
Yeah.
It's been out for a while. So Google announced it in October.
It was hard to get at the beginning, though.
Very hard to get,
Yeah.
and it's just coming to light now that both LG and Google are saying that they're blaming each other. They both did not appreciate how many people would like the Nexus 4, and which is fair, because when Google first announced it, even though it was their flagship Nexus phone, a lot of people thought it was a step back.
Well, it's a GSM-only phone. There's no LTE.
No LTE, and compared to the Galaxy Nexus, that was a phone that was on Verizon.
Yeah.
It was everywhere.
And it was the flagship Android phone on Verizon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so supply has been very constrained, but more recently, LG's been able to catch up in producing these phones. So after using this for a month, the big thing that was notable about this and the way Google releases its phones is that they release a new Nexus phone, or have released a new Nexus phone, with every revision of Android OS.
Right. So every 6 months or so, every year there's a new one for every major release of Android.
And this is Android 4.2 Jelly Bean.
So it's still Jelly Bean.
Still Jelly Bean.
We're not on to HIJ. What's a K? Crazy Cakes? Candy canes?
No, I think they
have they said?
They have said.
Oh, it's key lime pie.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And this current version is actually 4.2.2. So there are minor changes all around.
And we should apologize for your hands don't really look that color. They're not really orange. We do this so that the screen looks right. So the screen's going to look right on this shot, not necessarily the rest of the world.
So last year, when with 4.1, which was the summer that Google I/O Jelly Bean, Google made a big deal about emphasizing the new rendering in Android.
So it was a performance optimization pass for Android 4.0. They also added some other stuff like Google Now. And
I mean, with Ice Cream Sandwich, when we reviewed Ice Cream Sandwich phones and tablets, we still felt that there was a little bit of hitching, and the UI wasn't as smooth as we wanted it to be, regardless of what hardware was inside.
Big improvement over previous versions, but
yes, but it didn't reach that point where we could feel like we'd use it without an iOS level of smoothness, for example. But both hardware and software has improved since then, and the big thing with 4.1 was this triple buffering and they called it Project Butter.
It's a terrible name.
Well, it's buttery smooth, which they really want to emphasize.
I understand the reference. I'm saying it's a terrible name.
So this is 4.2, which retains all of that, and I'm really happy to say that it's perfectly smooth, and which isn't new, because even last year when you reviewed the HTC One X, that was perfectly smooth.
It was
also
like I could count the number of hitches that I had with that phone on one hand, and most of them were related to me doing something that was probably something better done on not a phone.
So with 4.2 Jelly Bean, there were a couple of differences. So I want to call those out right now real fast, because we haven't actually had a chance to talk about all the new things with Jelly Bean. Just first of all, notifications, they've split up the menu. So if you pull down with one finger, you get your standard notifications, which from using an Android phone, and there are notifications on iOS, they're much better.
Well, they've always been more robust, but in a post-Android 4 world, the notifications have been quite good.
Quite good. I mean, you can swipe them away. For example, I have items here. I can easily swipe them away. People know about this. But when new notifications pop up, and the thing that iOS doesn't have is it actually fills up that top bar. So I know exactly how many.
Well, that's been the case for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And this is exactly where iOS is kind of messed up.
So what happened? What happened to the things like you used to be able to and sometimes this was a manufacturer-specific skin thing. You could change things like Wi-Fi and turn Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and airplane mode and all that stuff on
before and off. Jelly Bean, that was always a manufacturer thing.
Okay.
And now it's actually built into the phone. So where I did one swipe, and that brings up notifications.
Okay.
If I do two swipes, it's the shortcuts.
Ooh. Oh, that's handy.
So I bring two swipes down, and then I have my brightness, your Wi-Fi, your battery, and all that stuff.
So it looks like they did what is Norman Chan? Is that just to remind you who you are?
That's just who I am, my Google ID.
So it seems like they put the stuff in here that are the most commonly used features. Yeah. The things that, like in iOS, you have to drill down into the settings menu.
These could have been on-screen widgets, and there are home screen widgets.
I'm sure there's still home screen,
exactly. But I find it's convenient, and some of these are long presses, some of them are short presses. I think it's fine.
And it's much better to have it in the notifications pane, which is accessible from every single screen on the device, than having to figure out it's on the third page of your.
And to be fair, this has also been updated on the Nexus 7. So if I update Nexus 7, I've updated it to 4.2. If you go from the left.
Left is standard notifications.
And then you have on the right.
Okay. Very cool. So we talked about the lock screen. What about the lock screen widgets?
So that's something new also. So if I turn it off, I do like that animation. Turn it back on. You have your lock screen, and then
does it still do the TV squinching thing?
It does the TV squinching thing, which I like a lot.
Yeah, it's cute.
Okay, you have your lock screen. I don't have a password on this phone. If I scroll over on one side, you have your camera quick access.
Oh, that's nice.
I mean, that's pretty standard.
Are the lock screen widgets the same as like you can do the thing with the pattern, or you can do numbers, or you can do a passcode,
or face recognition, whatever.
Is the face recognition any better? Or is it still? Can you still hold a photo
I don't
up
use
to
it.
Okay.
It's supposed to be better, but I don't use that. I used to use a pattern.
Okay.
You can add widgets like calendar, like mail, like Google Now. Well, it's Jeremy Williams' birthday today.
Happy birthday, Jeremy.
On the side, and you can download Twitter widgets. For example, Plume, which is the Twitter client I use, has a lock screen widget, which shows me my notifications.
So it has to have a specific lock screen widget for this. It doesn't just work natively.
Exactly.
But if the developer builds a widget, and are the widgets the same as the home screen widgets?
They are different from the home screen widgets.
Okay. And is that like fully functional? It looks like you can post and everything from in there. Is that the case?
Yeah, you can right here. It launches the
okay, it launches that. Okay.
Same thing with mail and calendar. You can only have so many, so I filled it up right now.
Okay.
But I'm still launching stuff right now.
Hey, corporations. Yay.
If I wanted to get rid of one and change it, for example, I can just get rid of the email one, hold it down, remove, and then scroll all the way to the end, and I can add one.
Okay.
And there go the
Wow, that's really cool. And this is the list of widgets that are available.
And the one I'm using on the front is HD widgets, which lets me have not only the time, but also the battery. And if I scroll down...
Can you put other stuff? Is that like customizable so you can put other...
So I can have... And that is customizable to a certain extent. And I got my quick access right there as well.
I mean, that looks really, really super useful. I assume you're still using the Google, like the Google Now stuff I would think is probably more useful on the phone than it was on the tablet.
And Google Now has been updated also with 4.2, so it pulls into the better Google search.
And more things to more kind of predictive things?
Yeah.
What's the best thing you've seen it predict while you've been using it?
It's still traffic.
Okay.
It's letting me know when traffic is out of the ordinary. And then pulling that out because it knows that I go to work at a certain time, and it'll give me alternate routes.
Interesting. So you want to talk about the gesture typing?
Yeah. So this is also new. I actually do not use.
It's not swipe, just to be clear.
It's not swipe, but the default Google you can enable built into the phone. You can enable type. Let me open a keyboard. I'm actually not using that right now. I'm using SwiftKey, but with the Google keyboard. Let me choose my input method. I'm just going to use Google.
And does that just pop up in the notifications anytime you have a keyboard open now?
That's a new keyboard. So if you're using a third-party keyboard, so this is the default Google one, and I'm not sure if I have the swipe enabled, but I do. So
so it really does work just like swipe.
And now it's just.
So you put your finger down and then you just move that finger. Mm-hmm. So it's more something you'd probably use with your index finger than your thumb, maybe.
What's cool is that you can actually do two-finger multi-touch.
Okay.
Also, so if you do something like. I need a word
type elephant.
Elephant. Oh, well, maybe that didn't work. Do you see how it combined?
Yeah, there it goes. Yeah.
Two fingers.
Weird.
Not something I really use, but it's something if people want to use and they can get used to. I'm going to change it back. I actually like SwiftKey, which is something you have to pay for. This was actually recently updated, so it also has the flow, they call it. So
the same kind of line drawing thing.
Exactly.
The SwiftKey is what people generally seem to regard as the best of the third-party Android keyboards. Do you feel like, and you said there was no lag. I assume that means the keyboard has been buttery smooth, for lack of a better term. Very cool. Anything else iOS 4.2 you want to talk about?
Not iOS.
Not Android 4.2?
Android 4.22.
Looking at your iPhone and saying other things.
There are a bunch of other small things, but for the most part, I'm very happy. I mean, a lot of minor differences just in the way they show the home screen, the bar down here on the bottom.
I don't think there we go.
Yeah, you can see that bar moving across the bottom, but all in all, it's standard Android.
Sounds good. You want to talk about hardware next?
Yeah, so let's talk about specifically about the Nexus 4. As we said earlier, it's LG makes it.
It's the fourth Nexus. It's the 4. But 3 years from the replicants by my math.
And LG makes another phone called the Optimus G. And spec for spec, it's very similar.
Isn't it an LTE phone though?
But that is an LTE phone. Yeah. This is similar to Optimus G, but no LTE, no micro SD card. You've got your fixed storage, and the language is a little different. So
it has the curved screen that started with the Nexus S. So it's just real slightly curved.
No, there's actually no curved screen.
Really? It looks curved from here.
if you look at the screen,
Oh, I guess it isn't.
no curve. So Nexus X curved like that. This does have a curved screen, but the curve is actually on the front, and it's a very gentle curve along these two edges.
Oh, across the bezels?
Right here.
It looks curvy when you're looking at it with the screen
If I show
off.
you from here,
Oh,
do you
yeah,
see
sure
that there's
enough.
a gentle bevel right here?
Yeah.
And on this side?
So it almost humps up in the middle a little bit.
That is one of my favorite things about this.
I've got to assume it makes holding the phone pretty comfortable.
It makes swiping the phone left to right extremely comfortable. So I'm going from the side here, and because in Google you do that so much,
Yeah.
both in your home screen and also in the lock screen, swiping left and right, it's very, very smooth. It feels very smooth. So there's glass in the front,
Yep.
glass in the back, actually, and it has an interesting texture. If you get real close, I don't know if you can see.
Oh, it has
there's
like
a little
looks like a
particle
countertop.
texture.
Yeah.
And it kind of shimmers if you move it. And they're actually little circles, I believe. Kind of a little bit of a throwback design. It's beneath
That's
the glass.
inside the glass. You can't feel it. though,
Yeah, you can't
obviously.
feel it. No, it's perfectly smooth here. It's very slick in the back, very slick in the front. A lot of people have had problems dropping this phone and cracking it.
Smashing the back glass.
I've-
It looks like they do a better job with the bezels around the edges, kind of giving more coverage area so that the phone can't land exactly on the edge of the glass like you could with the iPhone 4 and 4S.
Right. I don't know if you drop it like this or like that, like where it's where the damage point is. But I've dropped it flat on the back a couple times and flat in the front on straight floor, and no scratches and no damage so far.
And they say it's Gorilla Glass, I assume?
It is Gorilla Glass in the front. On the side here, it's plastic, and it kind of feels like that faux rubbery texture. So in terms of actually gripping it from the side, it's a very solid grip.
So is the part that looks like it's metal, is that just shiny black plastic?
That's
or is
a
it
shiny band,
a shiny...
a shiny metal band that goes around. You can't even feel it.
Okay.
It's almost part of the part of that frame. Yeah, it's an aesthetic choice. Some people like it, some people don't. I'm totally fine with it.
Processor?
So yes, so what matters, of course, is what's on the inside. And when this was launched,
That's what Mr. Rogers taught me.
everyone's special on the inside.
Yeah.
And this phone is also special on the inside. At least it was when it was released on November 13th. It uses a Qualcomm processor.
Okay.
It's a Snapdragon S4. And last year, the best processors for Android, you had Tiggo 3, and we're on the cusp of moving, the end of A9.
We're in a
ARM
transitional
A9,
period.
Transitional period,
Yeah.
for sure. Qualcomm has had a couple of transitional processors. For the A8, it was Scorpion, and this is the follow-up to Scorpion, which is a modification of A9. It's called Crate.
It's named after a deadly snake.
And so, so it's a Qualcomm Crate S4, and the graphics processor is a Adreno 320, which is faster than the processor you'd find, the graphics processor you'd find on something like the GS3, the Galaxy S3 from Samsung.
Which makes sense
1.5
because it's a year newer phone. I mean, just to be
half a year newer phone. 1.5 gigahertz speed, 2 gigs of RAM. All that means is that it's a very mature A9 processor. Qualcomm has since at CES announced their A15 processors, so likely while that was the best of its class back in November, we're going to see phones this year, and phones that have already been announced this year that are faster.
And so I mean, I assume that it's not a 1080p phone since
No.
you're using an older processor.
No, it's not. So. That's good because I don't think I don't know if the Crate would have been able to drive a 1080p phone. What's in the front though is a 4.7 inch, so it's actually one of the larger phones I've used. Not quite your Galaxy Notes.
Yeah.
A 4.7 inch phone, but it's an interesting aspect ratio. So something like your HTC One X or even your iPhone 5 now is 16 by 9. This is actually 16 by 10. It's 1280 by 768.
So it's the equivalent of a 1920 by 1080, 1200 screen.
1200 screen scaled down to 1280 by 768. So it's a little wider. If you compare it to,
It looks definitely wider than an iPhone. It looks skinnier than that HTC One X though.
it's about the same width.
Okay.
A little bit skinnier actually as the HTC One X. It's actually a little thinner too at certain points. But coming from using an iPhone to using the Nexus 4, I didn't felt like it was all that wide. Like the extra width hurt my ability to navigate.
It did?
It did not.
I was going to say, it looked like you were having no problem swiping from side to side.
I have no problem swiping from side to side or up and down.
Full thumb coverage.
I'm still two-handed use is ideal. What I do find is that the extra width makes it a lot easier to browse full web pages.
Oh, so you don't have to tap into the
I mean, you
column
tap
only.
in, but it's not like you're reading mobile web pages where they're made for single column. You
Yeah,
can
and
do a column and two column and a half with ease.
And on an iPhone 5, I frequently find myself not just zooming in, but also blowing up or going to the readability view or something like that because the screen's too narrow.
Exactly. iPhone 5 is made for that type of narrow screen. It's really made for like a feed type reading.
There's a reason they launched that reading list feature when they rolled out the iPhone 5.
Exactly. If I can pull up, I'm going to try to pull up a full web page, a full site. Pixel density wise, technically it's lower than the iPhone 5, but there are more pixels. It's really sharp enough that it's a great screen.
Well, and they're not doing the pixel doubling stuff either. How's performance on the browser and stuff like that?
Performance on the browser is fine. It's Chrome. I still want to talk about the screen.
Okay.
It's a really bright screen. It can get really bright, and I can demo that right now.
Is it a pentile screen?
It's an LCD, IPS LCD. So it actually gets really bright. At its full brightness, I would say it's usable outside.
That's crazy bright.
And then LG, because they also make screens, I mean, there are no slouches when it comes to making displays. They have their own kind of optical bonding technology they call zero gap, zero gap touch. So both the HTC One X, the Nexus 4, and even the iPhone 5 now have this technology where the LCD screen is actually bonded onto the glass.
It's the thing that makes it seem like the LCD is sitting just under the surface of the glass instead
or
of
on the
buried
surface
in.
as opposed to detached.
Right. I think the HTC phone is the first one we saw that did that, and it was surprising. When
I think the HTC phone is still better in that regard.
The HTC phone is the best looking screen I've seen outside of a
1080p phone or something.
Or
I think the HTC, and that could be because of this the Sense UI and how it does this 3D thing. I don't know. For some reason, I feel like it still feels a little floaty to me.
We're going to sound like lunatics here because it doesn't show up on the video, but when you're looking at it in person, it looks almost like a magazine page on the surface of the phone, on the HTC phone. Just to be clear, I don't think the Nexus 4 looks bad.
It doesn't look bad at all. It's very bright. I think the iPhone 5, the colors are a little better on the iPhone 5. They're a little more vibrant.
Apple's been pushing gamut. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And on this phone, brightness and clarity.
Okay.
So it's a great screen overall. And while it didn't feel like it was too thick or wide to hold, it does feel a little heavy.
Oh, the phone itself.
The phone itself, especially going from an iPhone 5.
Which is you'd think that the iPhone 5 would be a heavier phone because it has some aluminum on it.
Aluminum's lighter than glass.
Aluminum is lighter than glass, but it should have a larger battery because it's an LTE phone, and this isn't. So
no,
theoretically,
this actually has the larger battery.
Oh, really?
We'll get to battery in a little bit. iPhone 5 is actually relatively one of the smaller batteries compared to all the phones.
So,
it's 139 grams.
Okay.
So
what is that in American terms?
4.9 ounces, I believe,
so
something like that.
More than a quarter of a pound.
The iPhone 5 is 112 grams.
Okay.
This is heavier than the iPhone 5. It's about the same weight as iPhone 4/4S, and a little heavier than the Galaxy S3.
Okay.
But for its size, if you're used to an iPhone 4 and 4S, this is going to feel same weight in your hand. Okay. But for me, since I was using the 5 for a while, I've gotten used to that weight.
And it
felt just a little heavier.
Is this the same size as the Galaxy the Galaxy
the Galaxy GS3?
No, the Galaxy Nexus.
The Galaxy Nexus is a little thinner than the Galaxy Nexus, but a little thicker than the GS3.
Okay.
And it's the screen aspect ratio is different.
Okay.
Yeah. So we talked about the processor, talked about the RAM. Like I said, the difference between this and the Optimus G, there's no microSD card slot inside.
And that's kind of a problem because it's a little bit limited on internal storage, right? It's 16 gigs?
It's
is
8
the big
gigs
one?
or 16 gigs. You
8
can
gigs
max out at 16 gigs.
What's the usable on an 8 gig phone?
On an 8 gig phone, the usable is, I believe, 5.5. So it uses 2.5 for the OS. And it'll actually, if you go to storage, it'll show just 5.5. If you buy the 16 gig, it'll have 12.5 usable.
So is it not no SD card because the back's not replaceable, not removable?
Yes.
There's no user replaceable battery, I assume?
No user replaceable battery.
Okay.
And if you're going to buy this phone, get the 16 gig.
Yeah.
We bought the 8 gig because we wanted to save a little money and see if we could actually use 8 gigs.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I don't any photos I take here, I take off. Videos I take off.
Right.
I'm fine with apps so far, but paying $50 for what's essentially 7 more gigs of usable space is totally worth it for this phone. If it's going to be
you're going to use it for 2 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
16 gigs seems a little scary to me. I mean, I look at my 32 gig iPhone and think, I could use more space.
Well, with the iPhone, if you have like 32, or any phone, you have 32 gigs. When you go from phone to phone, you just keep all your pictures on there. I mean, that's where the pictures live.
Pictures and music, yeah. What you mentioned do you want to talk about the camera now, or you want to save that for a little bit
Let's
later?
save that for. There are two big things I want to talk about. And let's go through the ports. There's NFC. You can do your touch stuff.
You can
Google
bump.
Wallet.
Can you send porn to your wife when she's getting ready to get on an airplane? I heard that's a thing you can do with NFC.
It's a very private video.
Yeah.
For dad's eyes only.
Don't watch this on the plane.
HDMI out through the USB through a slim port adapter.
Okay. And is that? I assume that's 1080p video out the adapter.
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. You have your standard headphone jack. So let's get to the big things with this phone, and the big criticism, first of all, is that there's no LTE.
Yeah, so it's HPSDA, HDPCA,
HSPA+.
MFCPDA.
HSPA Plus.
Okay, that seems more
It's a
likely.
GSM phone only.
Okay.
So it's a world phone.
Right, which is
Comes
fine because
unlocked.
the previous version was a Verizon phone only for the vast majority of its life.
So what you can do is you can put in a T-Mobile card or an AT&T card, and it's not a nano SIM; it's just a micro SIM. So it's the same as what you find in last year's phones.
Okay.
I think the only phone that has a nano SIM right now is the iPhone 5.
Yeah.
I could not put my iPhone 5 SIM in here, even with an adapter, because I'm on a
But that's a real limited
It's a very,
use case.
I mean, for me specifically. So I borrowed relatives' iPhone 4S SIM from T-Mobile. Worked fine.
Okay.
In San Francisco, we kind of live in a special place.
Yeah.
I mean, LTE coverage is rolled out.
Yeah.
And we have really good LTE coverage both on Verizon and AT&T in San Francisco. We also have really good HSPA Plus coverage.
Yeah, I mean, on the iPhone 4S, I regularly saw speed tests in the 15 to 20 megabit per second range.
Yes.
Which is, I don't want to say unusual, but it was not my experience outside of downtown San Francisco.
So I can say that if you are someone who's on T-Mobile and you use the T-Mobile 4G, which is HSPA Plus.
And this phone has the antenna to support T-Mobile's HSPA, both AT&T and T-Mobile HSPA Plus. Okay.
If you have been on that network and have not had experience to true LTE, this phone is totally fine.
Okay.
If you have been using LTE, whether on AT&T or Verizon, and go to this phone after, obviously you can't move your Verizon account over. Yeah. Like I have on my AT&T LTE.
Yeah.
And here, guess what? It's totally fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
So
streaming, Spotify, totally fine. Loading web pages, totally fine.
Emailing photos,
totally fine. The only big difference where I noticed I wish I had more bandwidth is loading video.
Okay.
Is the buffering of the video, how fast the video starts playing. Not even the quality, just how fast it starts playing. When I watch Vimeo or HTML5 video or YouTube video on my LTE phone, the whole thing is buffered real fast.
Yeah.
But then that's going to suck up your bandwidth.
I mean, I literally download stuff on my LTE phone faster than I had broadband 10 years ago.
Or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's really fast. Speed tests on this phone with HSPA Plus around 20 megabits per second.
Okay.
That mileage may vary.
When you send, say you want to email an 8 meg photo to somebody,
that's
like a minute, maybe?
No. It's like 10 seconds.
Okay. It's not bad.
It's not bad at all.
Okay.
And most of the time I've been using this has been on Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi totally fine as well. Some people have had Bluetooth problems with this with the connection. I have not had any Bluetooth problems using this with my car. It's Bluetooth 4.0 in here as well.
And so the benefit of doing non-LTE is probably battery life, right? I mean,
I don't think they designed this phone with that benefit in mind. It's definitely one of the consequences.
It's a huge battery, though. You said it was a big battery.
It's 2100 milliamp hour battery compared to the 1440 milliamp hour.
Apples to oranges, different OS and
different
all that
OS,
stuff.
they're going to consume power differently, different screens. The reason there is no LTE on here is because of just what's available in the Qualcomm chip. And FCC regulation stuff. So this is not approved by FCC for LTE. There is actually, in the chip here, it supports the basebands for, I think it's baseband 4 for LTE in Canada and T-Mobile. T-Mobile, when they eventually roll out their LTE. Okay. But if you upgrade to Android 4.2.2, which is what's on here now, the newest, that will kill that baseband support. So if you want to hack your phone, and it is a hack, if you want to hack your phone and use T-Mobile's LTE on here when that's available. Don't upgrade your OS and probably look for a Nexus or with 4.2 and not 4.2.2.
Okay.
So
camera. Well, do we want to finish battery, or do you want to go to
let's go finish. The reason this is also notable, the network it works on and the radio in here is because it's sold unlocked. It's only sold unlocked.
So. Okay, so that means there's no contract.
You cannot buy it on contract. I don't think you can buy it on contract. You buy it directly from Google.
I think that there are some vendors in different countries that are doing contracts.
In the U.S.,
yeah.
in North America, you buy this for either $300
Okay.
or $350.
Oh, so it's only $50 for the 8 gig upgrade?
8 gigs for $300 for 8 gigs, $350 for
Okay.
16 gigs, and you put whatever network plan you want.
So you literally
GSM network.
And I assume you can go to google.com/Nexus and order
It's a
there
Google
as
Play
well.
Store.
Yeah.
If you go to, like, for example, people who buy a la carte, because if you buy this phone and you're off contract, there's only a couple of reasons you would do that. You would do that if you're mid-cycle.
Yeah. Like say you break your phone, you need a new phone real quick.
Yeah, you break your phone, you need a new phone, and then you want to wait, you're like, and in Canada it's 3 years for contracts, and here it's 2 years, and you're another year off, then this is a good stopgap phone a great stopgap phone, and you might even use this past your upgrade. But if you're not on contract and you buy this, don't pay the $90 per month, $100 per month on a cell phone plan, because then you're not going to change networks likely.
You're wasting your
buy one of those off contract to go plans. So AT&T has one. I think for smartphones it's like $65 a month. I think you'd even get away with.
And it's like an all-you-can-eat kind of Metro PCS style thing.
Kind of like that.
Okay.
But you can also get away with like a voice only or text only, voice and text only, and not pay for data.
If you're, just because if you're. Most of the people who work office jobs, we assume, are going to have Wi-Fi at home, Wi-Fi at work. Yep. The only time you're going to need data is in the car on the way to and from, and you shouldn't be on your phone when you're driving back and forth to work anyway.
And you can do offline map catching with Google stuff now. And the reason you need a phone is for phone calls, which I don't know about you, I don't take many phone calls.
This could be an awesome feature phone, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and like a text plan is probably the most important thing for
a smartphone with feature phone price, I guess. Yeah, that's interesting.
So if you buy this phone, be smart about what type of contract you are, or what type of data plan and phone plan you are adopting.
To be clear, there are some of the Canadian providers that are offering this on a 2-year contract, which is novel for Canada.
You're right.
At $99. But at that point, you're saving $200, and you're in for probably $2,000 of contract. So you're much better off just paying the other $200 up front. And
based on how phones change year to year, 2 years is reasonable.
Yeah.
2 years is not crazy. 1 year, every updating once a year is crazy.
Yeah.
Some people in this room do it because we have to. But updating once every 2 years, I would consider that acceptable and normal.
Something you carry in your pocket and gets beaten up every day. Living for more than 2 years is a little bit of a challenge. Let's talk about the cameras.
Sure. So in the back, there's a back camera and a front camera.
That's
in the back camera.
Amazing.
I know.
This is brand new.
There used to be an age where some phones didn't have front cameras. It's 8 megapixel camera in the back and a 1.2 megapixel in the front.
Is it recessed in there? It looks like it's protected a little bit.
It's flush.
Okay.
So some phones like the HTC One X and
I don't like that.
I don't like the knob on the bottom. Yeah. So if you put this flush on a table,
you're resting on the most delicate part of the phone.
And even though it's protected, it's thicker at some points and then thinner at some points. I like it flush on the table. So I like this. And I think that's the reason they chose the 8 megapixel sensor and not like a 13 megapixel sensor. It's made by Sony.
So it's
the front and the back.
Is it the backlit sensor?
Yeah, it's a 5-element lens on all jazz. You have your LED.
Pictures are good?
Pictures are good. I would still say not as good as the iPhone 5. You're going to make a direct comparison.
Okay.
But in terms of smartphone pictures, Instagrammable, tweetable.
Yeah, nothing you'd be ashamed of.
That in Jelly Bean, they've really updated, Jelly Bean 4.2, they've really updated the camera app.
So is the camera faster? Because the last time on the One X, the camera was fast, but it wasn't as fast as your Windows phone or
the shutter is very fast.
But the time from hitting the button to turn the camera on to first photo.
Yes, and I just launched it now, but there you go. Even if you go from lock screen, I just relaunched it again. But here's the new camera, and
this is a great photo. I love the composition.
I'm just going to go take a picture, and you can see the shutter's fast. There you go.
So
you swipe to the left, you see your picture.
Takes you straight to your photo roll.
Yep.
What's the indicator in there? Is that exposure and focus? Can you break them out?
I don't think you cannot break out focus and exposure. Third-party apps can do that, but it's focus. But here's also control ring. So you can do obviously your digital zoom. Yeah. You never want to do digital zoom.
Don't care.
It's a neat interface for people who want to do that. That was a real yawn. You can hold it down.
Digital zoom, Norm.
And here you have all your settings at a glance. It's the same button that's actually down here, but anywhere you tap, you can do
inside that middle. I like that. And is it tap anywhere on the screen to take the photo, or is it only the big button in the middle?
It's the big button, which I like.
Okay.
So you can enable your HDRs. You can change flash.
What's that thing over there?
That's the, well, I'll go through all of them.
Okay.
You got a front camera, which is a 1.2 megapixel, and that will
hey,
also
that's
do video also, 720p video.
Is it, I mean...
This will do 1080p 30.
Is the front camera noisy? Is it pretty good?
I would say it's noisy in low light.
Okay.
And it's fairly sharp. I've had, because of the fast shutter, some of my images are a little noisier than I like them to be.
Okay.
And then you can do some settings here and exposure here.
And that's exposure comp,
that's
not
exposure compensation.
Okay.
Correct. So I can make it brighter, or I actually like turning it down a stop.
You're just manipulating your setting,
exactly.
not the actual image. And I suppose you don't have more kind of photo-y controls like ISO and stuff like that. What's the lens on this? Did they say?
I don't know exactly what the lens is, but I can tell you that the shooting modes are interesting. So you do video, panoramic built in, and also new for 4.2 on Android Jelly Bean is photosphere.
Oh, is this the thing where you throw it up in the air and it tumbles and it gets a picture?
It is not that, but it allows you to take an expanded panorama. So I'll just enable it right now. I'll give you a quick demonstration. And you aim. You
level it, basically? Okay.
Start, and then you can cycle around and take more pictures moving, and then you can be everywhere. But having tested this, it works good outdoors, not so good indoors. And I would never say it works great.
I mean, it seems, in my experience, it's usually better to take a whole bunch of still photos and then plug it into a stitching program and see, and because that's a big processing power thing.
Yeah. So when you and you kind of want to do it around the z-axis. So the z-axis is where the camera is, and you kind of want to spin it around.
Pivot, basically.
A pivot as opposed to circling.
Yeah. So like holding it out at arm's length like this is going to be bad, and making it. Yeah.
And it processes it so you can actually then.
That's not terrible.
There's definitely some tearing.
It's making our office look really messy.
And the office was a really good test because I had tripods and tables at different distances away.
Does it have the tripod leg in there twice? Is that what that is?
Yep.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, there's definitely some clipping, like imaginary legs, half people.
Yeah, well, sometimes that happens because people are moving. I mean, these things never work if there's people moving around is the other part of it.
Floaty Joey.
Double Joey.
Yep.
You can never have too much Joey.
It's a good camera. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even
it's
using
good enough is the takeaway for
something I definitely noticed.
Yes.
It gets warm.
Warm, like processor warm?
Yes.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
So here is where it gets really warm. Happens in games, happens when I take photos, and it's just something you can't avoid. I mean, that's where the battery is.
Yeah. Speaking of battery?
Yes. So we said 21
milliamp hours.
Milliamp hours.
Yes.
Because with the SIM card in and using HSPA Plus,
as people are going to use a phone.
2 days.
Of use?
2 days of use.
Like listening to music on the bus?
Not without streaming. I'll say without streaming.
That makes sense.
But 2 days of web browsing and normal use.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I find if I, when I was in the hospital and didn't use my phone for a day, it lasted 2 days, meaning the second day.
Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I really like the battery on this phone.
Yeah.
And I know some people have had conflicting reports. There have been some tests where it just doesn't feel impressive. Maybe I don't have I don't have a ton of widgets, but I mean, and battery management, you can manage it and be obsessive about it.
That's like using Nav to go home, browsing the web.
Well, not using Nav. I didn't use Nav.
You didn't use Nav with
it. But web browsing, tweeting, and texting,
fine.
2 days.
That's awesome.
With Wi-Fi, a little more, around 2 days. And of course, you don't use it when you sleep.
We're back to the Nokia days where you could plug in your phone twice a week, and we're approaching that place. That's good news.
So I think that's basically it with this phone.
Is this enough to change you back to Android?
No, but if I was in a position where I had to or I could not use an iPhone for a year, I'd be way more than happy with this phone.
What are so they're not selling this in stores?
Yes.
I suppose that means you just call AT&T or T-Mobile and say, here's the data plan I want, if you want a data plan at all, and then they give you a SIM card
and you plug it in, and it totally works. And if you're moving from a iOS to this phone, you have to call AT&T and let them know that, because they have plans specific for
it's iOS plans and Android plans. How does this work with the tablet? Because one of the things I like about iOS is the integration between the tablet and the phone, where things like settings sync and apps sync.
It's all your Google account. Everything syncs. everything, you set it up, you sign in with your Google account. Everyone with Android knows this. You can push, to install apps. Everything's going to be there, and everything's pushed up.
And are you finding? I mean, I know that we're not talking about the tablet here, but the apps on the phone have always been, in my experience, much better than the apps on the tablet.
Apps on the phone are much better than the tablet. And there's a Tegra 3 in the Nexus 7, and this one has the Snapdragon, and this is so much faster.
Okay.
It feels so much faster.
Yeah, like in games and stuff like that?
It's just regular usage, regular browsing. So much faster than the Nexus 7, in my case.
So what if you really want LTE? And like, is this, if you feel
really
like you need
want
LTE, is this a deal breaker?
I don't think anyone needs LTE. I mean, unless their job requires it.
Right.
If for some reason you cannot deal with 20 megabit per second speeds in a normal metropolitan area, then this isn't the phone for you. But that would be the only reason that this phone would be a deal breaker.
Okay. So I guess that's it. That's the in-depth look at the Nexus 4.
Yes, that's it. And
by the 16 gig version?
By the 16 gig version, it's been November, December, January, February. It's 4 months old.
My hunch is that they're going to alternate tablet and phone now and do 6 months on tablet, 6 months on phone, rather than...
Google's been really advertising their Nexus line with the 4, 7, and 10. We don't know. I mean, Google I/O is coming up in a few months. I don't think that they're going to announce a new Nexus phone.
7.
It'll be probably a new tablet then. So if you are on the Nexus line, but they'll probably do a new OS, a key line will be announced there and release schedule for that. This will get that.
Okay.
The big thing for other phones, Android phones this year, they've announced some of them 4.1 still.
So some of them are shipping brand new out of the gate now with 4.1 is what you mean, yeah.
So the big thing for them this year is 1080p screens. And I don't think that I think we're not ready for 1080p screens with battery life. And 1080p it's a neat gimmick, but the screen here is excellent already.
At this point, you'd rather have the battery life and the lower resolution screen.
I'd rather have the battery life, lower resolution screen. The photos, I mean, the physical screen size, all those phones are the same physical screen size. My photos look great here, the ones I've taken in from my DSLR.
Yeah.
Video, even if you're watching 1080p video online, it's still compressed. You're not going to make the most out of that screen. 1280 by 768 is more than enough and will last you, for a while.
It occurs to me that you've had this thing sitting on the desk here, and we haven't talked about it at all yet. It looks like a half circle.
So this
sphere.
Was announced last year with the announcement of the phone, but actually only recently released, and it was a good time for us. It's a charging orb. And this phone has a couple wireless standards. It has your NFC. Actually has,
which is data, just to be clear.
It actually has Miracast also, so you can do for devices that support it.
That's the push AirPlay video. Yeah.
And also has wireless charging. This is based on key charging.
Pixel key.
Yeah. And it's magnetized. It looks like one of those Palm Touchstones. And so if you plop it on, if you look at the top right-hand corner of the phone, as I pop it on, it will say that it's charging, and you can see the little charge icon.
And is that just a micro USB?
That's just micro USB. Includes a cable. It doesn't include the wall wart. What's neat, though, what's theoretically neat, and the reason it's not flat, because like Energizer sells these chargers that's compatible with this phone, but they're flat. The reason this is $60, totally worth it, I think. The reason to get this one is because it's propped up. Like I have this.
So you put it on your desk.
On my desk or a nightstand.
Okay.
And at night, plop it on. And this is kind of finicky. So there's a dream mode on the phone. I can actually show you in settings. But daydream mode.
Dream joke.
And I have it set on clock.
Okay.
So theoretically, what happens is when it's daydreaming, which means it's kind of in its sleep mode, it will show an ambient information.
It's called daydream mode, really? That's really lame.
It's called daydream mode, but it's a little finicky. So if
Can you have multiples of those things on, or is it just the one?
Just the one thing.
Okay.
So if I pop it on, theoretically it'll show me a clock, it's charging, but as you can tell,
it doesn't turn on every time.
Not.
Is it like a high-low? How's the? Oh, it feels.
It's not going to slide off.
Weird. It doesn't slide off at all. Yeah,
it doesn't
it's real
slide
high
off,
friction.
but it's not where it's going to hold. This wouldn't hold.
How reliable is the? Did you put it on there and have it not charge?
I did twice.
That's a real bummer.
Yeah, that's because if it's an off angle or something.
It seems like the magnets should lock it. Like it seems like the high friction thing and the magnets are counter to each other, and it should have either one or the other, but not both.
Yeah. So right now this is not charging, but it's magnetized.
Yeah. That's a bummer. $60 though, that's a lot for something that's kind of sketchy.
Well, Apple sells their chargers for $30.
I think that's sketchy too. Yeah,
that is also sketchy. So if I have it like in
that
the
also
lock
comes
screen
with
mode,
the phone. Just to be clear, the charger for the Apple device.
if I have it in the lock screen mode and it's going to go to like sleep, it's charging right now. It will show the daydream mode in just a few seconds. We're not going to wait on that. I'm just going to actually show you what that mode. See, the screen's dimming, and then I'll do daydream mode. I can force it. I can start now. And if I start now, there it goes. It will show, see that clock?
Yeah.
Which is, I can tell you, in the middle of the night or waking up in the morning and not having to turn on a phone to check the time, and it makes me able to, as a glance.
You're a lazy man, Norma
That
Jen.
is awesome.
I roll over and hit the button and say, Siri, what time is it? And then she says, it's 5:20 a.m.
What time is it?
Yeah.
And
And then the baby's screaming. I don't understand you, Will. I'm sorry.
My one complaint for this mode is that because it's LCD screen,
Yeah.
even in this mode, the backlight's always on, so it's not completely black.
Okay.
If it was an OLED, then you would only see the time.
Oh, so even when it, oh, that's kind of, so it's
See a little
too bright?
bit. It's a little bit too.
It's like a nightlight.
Not that bright.
Okay,
but
so-
it's not pitch black.
$60, order it from the Play Store too. Does this mean if you have an Android phone, you can order a phone from your phone? So you can order things while you're phoning?
Sure. Thanks for finishing this.
Be here all week. You like the Nexus 4?
I like Nexus 4.
That seems good. I would say skip that thing. It seems like a disaster, even though it's cool. And if it works with third-party wireless chargers, get one of the other ones that maybe works better.
I think this is very cool.
For Tested, I'm Will.
I'm Norm.
See you guys later.
Bye.